Tell us a little bit about your school days.
Well, I grew up in Leicester, and it's an awfully long time ago, so I'll try my best to remember. But I did what most kids do, went to a local school, and then I managed to pass the 11 plus, which was a thing they had in those days, so which meant I could go to a grammar school, and I went to City Leicester Boys School, and that's where I started playing sport. Really, it was always my main preoccupation. Obviously, I did okay at school, nothing terrific, but because I was probably too focused just on playing sport. But as far as I can remember, most of my school days were reasonably happy.
And you used to play cricket as well, but what drew you to football?
Well, yeah, I loved both football and cricket as a kid, and in many ways I probably showed a little bit more ability at cricket at that particular stage. But as I got older, I think the football opportunity of professionalism came along first. I took it, and then cricket sort of took a back seat from there. But I always played it, even right throughout my football career. I still played in the summer because it's a great sport. But in the end, I suspect it was probably the right decision. There wasn't too many people from different cultures in the particular school I went to. There's bullying. There was always bullying. If you just stand out a little bit, if you look a little bit different. I mean, I used to get verbal bullying. I mean, I used to get called names because I had sticky out ears, and because I got swarthy skin, I used to get stupidly called Packy quite a lot of the time. So on the receiving end, a bit of that. But I think if you sort of good at sport, you seem to get rid of that to a certain degree, which is not necessarily the right thing, of course. But so there was, I didn't experience that much, but enough to know that kids can be really cruel.
When kids face racism in schools, because of their colour or because they're Muslim or because they're East Europeans, what would you say to them?
To the people that are on the receiving end, I think it's difficult to know what to say. I think you can, the best will in the world, you can say, well, try and stand up for yourself, try and take no notice because they're just ignorant, stupid people, which they are, to do that. As we said, kids can be cruel and thoughtless and perhaps don't really think it through, so you can explain that they don't really understand what they're doing and what they're saying and how wrong it is. But it's, different people react in different ways, and some people will get extremely hurt about it. Other people will fight back. Other people will just take it on the chin. And I suppose different people respond in different ways. And I don't think there's one given way. Personally, I don't think there's one given way of saying this is how you should deal with it. I suspect if it gets anything above just the occasional comment, then it's probably best to talk to people, I would say. I think talking's always a good thing. What
if they're really scared, what would you say to them?
Well, if they're really scared and are facing, real, I suppose, tough degrees of racism, bullying, etc., then you've really got to speak to someone, whether it be your parents, whether it be your school teachers or someone you can trust at the school. And, whilst I suppose telling of people is also quite scary because you don't know what the ramifications might be from those bullying you. But I think you've got to think to yourself, well, it can't really get any worse. If I'm already scared, I might as well, just include people. At least they might have the wherewithal to do something about it.
Yeah, I think what's happening in schools is there's quite a lot of stuff against Muslims at the moment. Islamophobia and hatred towards Muslims. Why do you think that might be?
I think it's hard for anyone to really understand what motivates people to be racially abusive towards other people, because ultimately we're just people. We're all the same. We've got different characteristics, but we're all people. And it's hard to comprehend, really. People might look around the world and see things going on where some sort of extremist behaviour in certain situations, that all of a sudden there's an assumption that even if it's a tiny group of people doing wrong things, doing really bad things, that there might be an assumption that everyone's like that in that particular genre. kind of people, but which is again absurd. In the same way as, you know, whatever skin colour you are, whatever religion you are, most people are really good, and there are always bad people in all walks of life, in all different kinds of cultures.
And you've mixed with quite a lot of people from so many different backgrounds, isn't it, in your career? What do you think you would have gained from all that?
Well, I think that I always say that when you sit in a dressing room, and I've sat in a dressing room with people of all colour and races, and when you tend to look around, I used to look around and see, you know, he's a really good player, he's a midfield player, he's not that good, but he tries really hard, and you don't think, well, he's black and he's got an Asian skin colour, or I just don't understand why you would think like that, because ultimately you're all on the same team, or you're playing against somebody, and it's just sport. And I think sport's great for that. I think it sets. I know we've got troubles and we highlight issues, but at least in sport we try to do something about it if it's wrong, and people speak up against it. And it's, and generally on the field of play, it's a real, pretty rare event that you get that kind of racism. So, and the other good thing about, I think, football in particular is that it is, it's very diverse. I think we'd like to see more Asians playing our game, but I think that's different issues. But in terms of black players and mixed race players, I think there's it's a great example of how you can succeed. And where you come from makes absolutely no difference at all. It's all about your attitude, your commitment, your ability, and your talent, and you'll rise to the top regardless.
So sport has that big role to play.
Yeah, and I think sometimes at the moment it's brilliant within the game. Perhaps. Above that, in terms of the administration and the coaching side of it, I think we can certainly improve. But I think that will happen because it's really the generation now that are just finishing and they're going into the other thing. And you've got to remember also that owners of football clubs are predominantly sort of rich, middle-aged white people. And they've grown up in a different era, where I think the people that are a little bit younger, they've grown up more accustomed to with different races, different cultures as they've grown up. So they think like that. And I think even for probably the most middle-aged owners, it's maybe a subconscious thing. I don't know. I think they're all a little bit different. But I think it will change when the next generation comes through, and the generation of owners that have grown up in different circumstances.
Now, you actually lived for a while in Japan and Spain as well. How did you find, actually mixing with a different culture altogether?
Well, sometimes it's different, and I imagine it's the same when people come here. You've got language issues. I learnt Spanish, and I got survival level in Japanese. So, you've got to work hard yourself and try and make it easier for yourself to be able to communicate with the people. Because when I went to Spain, virtually nobody spoke English. A lot of them do now, and the same in Japan. So you've sort of got to make an extra effort. But I went to both places as a sort of big name footballer, so I was given probably special treatment. But both those countries have got issues of racism. There's no question about that. We've seen that at various times in sporting events, and I suppose it goes right across the world. And Japan as well, who are very, they have a real, I think, regard as they are a very powerful race, and so they have their issues as well. So it's right, it's out there. Whatever, if I don't know what it is, but it's something about if people are a little bit different to you, or perhaps the norm in a certain country, then there's I suppose sometimes they will look down on people in those circumstances, and it's something that you can never justify.
Yeah, Spain's a bit worse sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah, I think Spain's a little bit, behind us. For me, it's easy. I can't talk about general life, and I was there a long time ago. It was 25 years since I left. But I think, I can certainly see it from a football's perspective. You see more racist issues around Spanish football. You see more racist issues around Italian football. You certainly see more racist issues around Eastern European football. Certainly towards black players, which is unacceptable. But it's down to education, I think, and I think ultimately that's has to be the key. But in each country should take that responsibility themselves.
And you know about migrants, we've had migrants forever
Yeah.
really, and they might come into this country because they want to pick strawberries or they're footballers, you know. But do you think they get a raw deal and they get blamed for all the social ills?
Well, I think there's certainly a trend towards blaming, I think, immigrants towards, you know, various things, whether it be claiming too many benefits and so. And the truth is that doesn't really, you know, they bring in far more than they cost, if that's the right way of describing it. You know, they come in and do a lot of work. They bring, I think, a lot towards our economy is actually the fact. It's not the fact that perhaps some people would like to see, but you know, I think it's far more important to concentrate on what's been going on in the banking world, and you know, and certain huge companies that don't pay any tax whatsoever around the place than perhaps to victimise a few immigrants trying to do better in their life.
Yeah. And you know, you've had an amazing and successful career. You could be out on a yacht somewhere sipping margaritas, but here you
I
are.
wish. I'm not that keen on margaritas. It's the salt.
You've made a commitment, you know, towards addressing inequality and racism within football. Why have you made that decision?
I think any, you know, decent human being would look at cases of racism and think that that's wrong. I'm just fortunate to be in a position where perhaps people will listen to me, or I'm given a voice. I can perhaps raise awareness, and I think it would be remiss of me not to use that opportunity when I can. You know, I think by and large, the massive majority of people are good people that don't think like that, and it's like all this. It's always the minority that you've got to target, and I think it's important that people in the public eye that you know, have a degree of understanding of certain issues and feel it's wrong, when they can either speak out, raise awareness in any way that they can. And I just feel really blessed to have that fortunate position where I can be heard. Show racism the red card.